Welcome to today's episode of CLCI Live, brought to you by the award-winning and ICF accredited school, Certified Life Coach Institute. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode.
Hi everybody, we're live.
We're not live. We're not.
We are live.
We are.
We are live.
That's what we were talking about before.
We're
What kind
talking
of
about-
pie do you like to eat? Nothing about
I like it. Let's
cooking.
talk about pie. It's season. Are we doing pie season? Isn't it?
It's pie season. There you go. And
Next
it is.
summer.
We have snow on Pikes Peak. It's kind of cool.
When does pie season officially start? Exactly.
Right now.
Let's,
Right.
we'll talk about the live topic for like 10 minutes, and then the rest of the time we'll talk about pie.
Yeah.
Pie.
So we are live. So let's go ahead and give it an introduction, everyone. We're all hungry here at CLCI and probably craving sweets a little bit too much to be going live at the moment, but we don't want to miss you guys. So we're here again at 4, and we will be speaking about today a bit of a spooky topic. We want to be a bit topical, as is in this season right now. So we will be talking about facing the fears in your clients. Inevitably, as a coach, you will come across instances where your client has some fears, has blocks, insecurities. These things are going to come up over the course of your coaching sessions. And today we kind of want to start talking about, for you guys, just kind of display what those fears might be, and then also give our take as to how we can maybe dispel some of these fears in your clients, how to manage and navigate those as a coach once they do come up and you do encounter them as a coach. So let's go ahead and first off, what's your favorite pie flavor, Brooke?
Lemon.
Lemon.
Pie. I make a mean lemon pie. It's so good. It's so good.
Now, secondarily, what do you guys think scares a client the most when they're in a session?
Well, like, what kind of scared are we talking about? Like, are we talking about like I'm scared of I mean, is this irrational or are they rational?
I say in general, what do you think scares? So outside of obviously sitting across from someone, but maybe potentially for the first time meeting them, I mean, just in general, what scares a client about coaching sessions?
Oh, okay. All right. Because you know what I do? I mean, I used to scare people for a living.
Yeah.
Assuming the person's already coaching with you.
I don't think the coaching session necessarily scares them. I think what can be uncomfortable are decisions they make during a coaching session and the potential of how it will change their lives.
Well, yeah, we talked about that a little last week. Like,
Mhm.
So maybe the fear of commitment, which is also a fear I share.
Mm-hmm. I think everyone's a little afraid of commitment, depending on what it
what's
is.
scary about commitment? What is it?
No, I'm pretty good at commitment. Just saying. Honestly.
No, I'm
Um,
pretty good at it too, actually.
Yeah.
I mean-
I don't know, maybe a client is afraid of maybe sort of opening up or delving deeper.
Well,
Yeah, that's I think
okay, honestly, if we all just get real here, we could be guesstimating about other clients all day long, right? We can do that, but how
That's
about we
scary.
try to take this to like a place where we can actually relate to it and go, okay, well, if I was a client and be real in this moment, what would I be afraid of? And there are things that we are afraid of facing as human beings. Like there are topics, there are things within ourselves that we maybe deny or don't want to work on because they are serving a purpose for us in our lives in some regard. And so it can be scary to have that brought up by a coach for sure.
you got
And
it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Brooke. Go on.
No, carry on. Your turn.
Having been a client before here live at times,
Not
a really,
you.
a really scary portion of that is being vulnerable and opening up and allowing yourself to kind of not completely open up your closet and give everything that you've got to the world, especially again if you're here live online.
We're all
But with a coach, it can be just a bit scary trying to again be vulnerable with them, share with them some things that you may not probably, I would assume, on a regular basis share with most people. And it again, the to get a successful coaching session, and I think it takes a lot of vulnerability, which for me it's got to be one of the more terrifying aspects of being a client.
Establishing trust is a huge part of our curriculum, and creating that safe space. And what is the purpose of that? Why do we have to be in a safe space? And why do we have to establish trust? That's because our clients will be vulnerable. They're going to be, we want them to open up and be willing to explore. And in order to do that, you have to be, to a degree, in a vulnerable state, be willing to share those things that you don't maybe put out there for other people. And that can be a scary thing for a lot of people, to be emotional and real and actually share what they're actually feeling and thinking. How many walls do most people put up and build, and barricades to keep people out of what they're actually thinking and feeling?
Well, and they don't want to be judged. They don't want to be judged in that. There's times,
they don't want to get hurt. They don't want,
in the beginning, when I was a little more silent, when I was listening and just giving a little more silence in a space, the client would feel, you didn't like that, did you? Or you know, and I'm like, instead of, because in that space, while we've been training, silence is golden, but in that space, it was awkward for the client, not because they needed that space. It needed to be filled in space. I'm thinking about what you shared. I'm understanding and listening, and right. So that's what I needed to fill in that particular space. So it's understanding that client in the moment as well.
Again, so with that, that is so much, addresses the magic of coaching, one of the magic parts of coaching, and that's that creating a safe space theory. And really, it is a unique place to be in when you're in a good coaching session with a coach that you are connected with, and you have that magic. We actually get it in our classrooms a bit, which is kind of awesome. But it's just this space where you can be you, and you're accepted, and you can just be free to think and feel. And but that's not going to happen instantaneously for everybody, right? That's going to be something that sometimes takes a little while to build up. Or how do you guys suggest getting your clients to be willing to open up, to give you that safe space, to be a part of it?
Sometimes it just takes time, depending on who you're talking with, and being patient. You as a coach have to be patient for the process to work and grow. Sometimes coaches are not patient. They feel like there should be more happening in a session. And that's really more about the coach than it is the client. The clients, if they're doing their work and they're feeling supported, even through their fears, that information is going to grow and change as we unfold, unpack, take time to discover what they're talking about.
I would say, I know. Well, that's a nice segue. Yeah, that's a segue for what I was going to say, which I think a really, really good way to kind of establish trust is to, again, establish that vulnerability with your client, and holding space for that silence is big. I know in my experience as a client, having, whoever is coaching me at the moment just hold a 30-second pause allows me to breathe, think, gather my thoughts, and be able to organize, something that I can go ahead and relay to the coach. And again, that typically in that space of silence, it's typically a space of vulnerability that's being reflected, because I've been given the opportunity to truly, genuinely think about what I want to reply with next.
Isn't using silence, though, also like a kind of like a fear tactic?
It can be, if you see it that way. I think.
I kind of see it that way. Like a lot of
it can certainly be scary.
A lot of, I guess, investigators will use silence as a tactic to get somebody to speak because it's uncomfortable and it is scary, like Linda said.
But it's a different dynamic.
And there's different body language and a different tone.
We're on their side.
What I'm getting at is that silence is uncomfortable and can feel scary. Isn't that a way, though, we can prompt our clients to talk, though?
Well, yeah, absolutely. You
I
know,
think-
We're
I
not
used to
staring
say-
at them intently like.
no, but I used to say like you knew that you were comfortable with somebody, that like you had reached a level of comfort when you could share silence with a person and not feel awkward. Like that's
Yeah.
when you knew that you had rapport. Essentially, you had reached a level. It's a level up moment. Like, is that when you can be in the same room as somebody else and you don't have to fill it in with noise and you can just be silent. It's a good indication that you are comfortable around that person. And so I think that that is something that we strive for in coaching to get with our clients, where we can sit in silence and they're not going to feel accused or like they have to fill in this space. However, if they do, that's okay too. So be right back.
I've got a question for everyone. Is
Mhm.
fear always a bad thing? Is fear a bad thing in a coaching session?
To define what you mean, fear a bad thing. Someone
Well, if-
talking about their fear or being afraid.
I guess a client being afraid and having these fears about opening up and working with a coach, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but the fears tend to manifest themselves into blocks, and that's when fear becomes a bad thing in a coaching session because it sort of inhibits the session. So what I want to get at is what are some like blocks that maybe we encounter as coaches a lot of the time, or what are some like blocks a client actively puts on themselves because they're afraid.
Well, that's a lot. I mean, that's where like I can't do that. I couldn't possibly do that. There's no way I could be capable. That's not possible. Any of those kind of moments when you hear your client backpedaling before they've even made the attempt, that's an indication that there's block. That's an indication that there is something there, that they've already canceled out the opportunity before even attempting to get it.
Well, and then there's the flip side of that, someone who just comes up with the perfect answer in the quick moment, and that perfect answer is not congruent with who they've been through the coaching session. So that would be also a block. It's not something they're going to do. It's just they're answering correctly. That's the right answer. That people pleaser concept. Yeah.
Placation kind of thing where you're placating your coach.
Mhm.
Or maybe the person who's just like, yes, let's go for this, let's do this, but they're not taking an account of like how they're going to get there, what steps they're going to take, or I mean, I kind of see that as a gambler's sort of fallacy where like you just ignore the odds, ignore if it's a good idea or not, and you just say, yeah, let's go for it and let's do it. That's
Well, okay, so I'm going to be devil's advocate there and say good idea, bad idea. It's not our job to decide. As coaches, it's not our job to decide what is a good or bad idea for our clients. Our job is to let them decide and then support them.
Maybe what I mean.
That part is a huge discussion in learning and training, because many coaches think they're the ones that make the decision on whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. It's very interesting.
Maybe what I meant was not that it's a good idea or a bad idea. It's just there's no meat or substance to it. Like there's no accountability. There's no steps on how they're going to get there. It's just an idea.
Again, that is disregarding what the work of a coaching session would be to some degree, isn't it? Like the idea is we come in as a client, we set a goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
We say, okay, so this is my goal for the session. And if that's to work on another goal, then whatever you work on in that session will be creating that plan and those steps. Now, if at the end of the session he said, "Oh, I'd also like to go to the moon," and I'd be like, "Okay, well, next week, let's talk about that."
Did you guys see William Shatner's going to the moon? I mean, going out in the outer space. Not the moon. Anyway,
I want to know that.
he's 90 years old.
He's awesome.
He's
William
90?
Shatner.
Yeah.
Wow, and he's still getting around. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
Absolutely.
Shatner.
Anything's possible. You just never know.
Well, exactly. No, you can go to the moon if you want to go to the moon. Hell, it's possible. It's just you have to figure out how to get there. It might be a long process, but if you're willing, this is just something I firmly believe, and I really blame my parents for this, because my whole life, for whatever reason, they told me that anything was possible for me. I could do anything I wanted because of who I was. But if I believed it, I could do it, and I grew up absolutely believing that, and I still do to this day, that anything is freaking possible. if I put my mind to it, if I am determined enough, if I take the time and I put that time, I mean, barring, a meteorite coming down and killing me or something like that, I can make it happen. It's surprising. I've learned how easy sometimes it can be to make doors that seem impossible open. Like, you can reach people that I have gotten to work with people and do things that I never thought were possible. It was just by tenacity and saying yes and keep going. The trouble is sometimes as it's hard to keep going. And that's where life gets in the way and all these things, and keeping that focus on that goal can be a little tough at times. So
What if we have a client who has had the opposite sort of effect?
I know it makes me
What
breaks
if-
my heart when
What
I
if
see
we have a client who's throughout their whole life has been told you can't do this,
it. This is as far as you
you're
get
small,
to be. Yeah.
and they've been sort of, other people have been affirming this, but they've also been reaffirming this their whole life, and they want to get coaching, but they're putting themselves in this box, and they say, well, I would like to maybe, I don't know, run a marathon, but I can't. I'm not that person.
Well, and that's the thing. That's a big old block right there. That's a big old fear. Ultimately, what that is them. It's the story, that internal dialogue that we tell ourselves. I'm only capable of this, and we reaffirm it. We actually, because it's so embedded in us, we seek out the moments when it's reaffirmed, because it affirms that belief, and so that's what we'll
That's just
see.
a confirmation bias at that point. Like
It does
fighting
become a
against-
confirmation. It absolutely does become a confirmation bias. So that as a coach, breaking that can be very, very. It's not going to happen overnight typically, and when your client's not ready for it, you can't go there either.
Well, is that even the job of a coach to break that?
Well, not necessarily.
We're not going to break it,
Yeah,
but we're
if-
going to
if I was a
support
coach,
them
Maybe that
when they're
wouldn't.
in that place of growth.
Yeah,
But
if they're ready to like move past that thought process, we would ask them to. We would be there to support them through that.
Mhm.
How do we then help them to get to that point where they want
That's
to?
dangerous, because that's us
Yeah.
being attached to an outcome, and that's us wanting them to get to a place, right, without us getting without that's our agenda, not their agenda at that
Mhm.
point. And that's the slippery
That can,
slope.
that can be hard for coaches though, because from your third point of view, your perspective, it might be so clear in
Oh
your
my
head
goodness,
that this
no.
is the problem.
So
It's just like it's the nail in the forehead, and you're just like,
Yeah.
can I just take that nail?
no. So I was using I was using coaching in this is when I was working on a film, and I had people not getting along, and I just wanted to beat it into their heads. Like, it's so obvious, come on. And it was driving me crazy, and so I'm coaching them, trying to get them to see. And it wasn't until like the very end that the light turned on. But you don't know how many times I was so frustrated. I wanted to be like, yes, let's get there. But if you're not ready for it, there's nothing you can do. It's just not going to click. It's not going to work. And they were in a place where they were still angry at each other, and they weren't ready to move forward. And so there was no coaching them through that until somebody was willing to break that anger and start to be more willing.
So here's my question then. You've got the block
Mhm.
that's there. You can't really tackle it head on because that's your goal as a coach, not the client's. But it keeps inhibiting the coaching sessions.
We ask about it. So let's see. Do you have a pre-existing? Do you have something that you tell yourself, Anthony?
Sorry, I'm too insecure for this conversation right now.
There. So tell me more about your insecurity.
Let me. How about this? It's sort of insincerity, and I steer away from sort of like more in-depth topics about myself. I like to deflect with humor or stuff like that, and it prevents people from getting to know the real me.
So tell me more about why, or what preventing people from getting to know the real you.
Is this related to my goal though? Do I really want to talk about this?
Or
As
that's
a
right.
client?
We don't have a goal, darn it. So we can't
Yeah,
really do
so
this.
this isn't real. But I mean, what if I guess I am really deflecting now, but
You are
what
now.
if the client doesn't want to go down that route?
Well, then we don't. We don't dig. We don't dig. We don't want to dig.
I call it, we don't poke the bear. It's poking the bear, right? We
I'm
don't
sort of
poke the bear
bringing up
when the
the
client
worst.
says stop.
I'm bringing up the worst possible example. They don't want to talk about it, but it also keeps inhibiting the coaching session.
I've had this actually. I had this with a client where she was clearly dancing around a subject and just didn't want to go there. Like it was a block. It was a big, giant, like blinking sign block, and she just was not. She just didn't want to address it. And there's nothing you can do to force them to. I would ask questions. I would. She would tap on it, but until she's ready, she's not ready to go there.
Or they're waiting for the perfect moment to actually spring the information. Thinking of some clients, and I'm not going to give away too much of that detail, but one of the things I finally came to, I go, I am missing something. Help me understand what I'm missing. And then that's when the answer came out. We're doing this dance, going around in circles. We're talking about the different fears that they were going through, and then the answer came out, and it was like, oh, well, of course, this all makes sense now. Everything fell into place. So, like Anthony said, it can be a deflection until it can no longer be a deflection, because that became an important piece in that coaching moment.
Again, it's that when they were ready to go there, they went there, right? I mean, and maybe it did just take you asking about it. But you obviously at that point hadn't figured out that you were missing something, right? So timing is a very important thing, but I'm not going to say that it's so critical, because I think that we are given, if we're coaching with our clients, several opportunities to address things. It's not like a one and done. You have to have the perfect question at the perfect time. That's a fear that coaches have.
Yeah, that's definitely a fear. They want to be.
You guys all day is fears that coaches have, because that's a huge one that comes up in our classes. Is how do I know I've got the right question? I'm asking the right question. I want to make sure it's the right question at the right time, and I'm asking the right questions. But I say, what is right and wrong? that is, it's not. Don't stress about that, right? Trust the process. But that's a huge fear that coaches have. We want to talk about fears. I mean, what other fears do coaches have?
Oh, they got bunches. They got fears of leaving their day job for this coaching gig. They've got fears about not understanding what the client is saying. They've got fears about what if they steer them wrong. Well, then that's not coaching.
Like what if they? Yeah, that's a big one. Or what if my friends and family laugh at me? Or what if nobody takes me seriously? Or what if I'm not good enough or trained enough, or I don't have enough experience.
Hard enough.
Yeah. A lot of coach fears we get to hear. But I think a big one that comes up in the coaching sessions is that, will I have the right questions? Will I know what to ask next? Will I know how to help my client, essentially? And what if my client is more experienced than me? Or what if, well, the beautiful thing is you don't need to know. You just have to be able to be curious, right?
I think that could be something that could potentially scare a client, would be overthinking, being in that headspace of where you're just assuming that the client is thinking themselves that this guy across from me, my coach, has no idea what they're doing. And that might make it an uncomfortable space for your client to actually, again, open up.
Why would the client hire you if they had no idea what they're doing?
Well, I mean that overthinking space where it becomes apparent that, you're kind of just too stuck in your head. You're taking too long to kind of just move the session along. That can potentially scare a client, when that doesn't need to happen. You shouldn't be working too much harder than your client at all. You shouldn't be working harder than your client. So I think that could be something that could potentially scare a client.
Kendra, what did you say? That's me too.
Oh, I think it was in reference to the wondering what the right question was in a session, which I can kind of understand why somebody would have that fear, because if the goal of coaching is to maximize the potential of the client, you're always sort of thinking, what is the best question to move towards that goal? And
well, yeah, but I think that's not. I think that framing is flawed. To assume that there is a best question to start with. when that's not even how we should think of it. We should just be curious to learn more. It's not about that's again us being attached to the outcome. We want our client to get to X, Y, and Z. Well, that is an indication that we are attached to the outcome and we're not actually present in the moment, being curious about our clients and being there with them. It's like imagine somebody's telling you a story, right? And you want to get every detail of that story, and it's you're hanging on the every word that they say. We've all had those moments, right, where it was like, oh my god, okay, yes, tell me more, those moments. That is how we should be as a coach. We should be curious, like it's this juicy story that we've got to hear every detail about, and not be worried about what the outcome is. Just be invested in the story, really.
So then we also talk about the stories the clients tell themselves. What if the story the client is telling is maybe not the story they want, or maybe sort of leads to black and white thinking, or I don't know how to describe
so
it.
kind of black and white thinking. If I'm saying, well, it always turns out this way. Like it always does. Every time it turns out this way. What do you ask?
Does it always turn out that way? Is that always and forever? Or does it sometimes turn out that way?
Exactly. So right there, you've asked that question, and I would go, well, not always. Yeah, there have been times when it didn't. And so what would you do from there?
So tell me about the times that it didn't go that way.
Well, this, that, or the other thing happened. And so what you've done though is now you've shifted the story though, haven't we? We've taken that story, that always, and now we're shifting it to a different space. And we're doing so by being curious. It's not about the outcome though. It's not about knowing that I have to be in this gray area, or you're now just exploring the not always, if that makes any sense. I see that we have fearful being a coach. I just received my certification and I'm nervous to move forward. Well, what is forward? Why?
As far as addressing some of the fears of being a coach, would you guys think it's maybe more important to understand what not to do as a coach, or what to do as a coach? What you should be doing.
What to do?
That makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
The negative space, like that, like these are the mistakes. These are the things that you can do wrong, because then you're fixated on all the negative, and so it's bound. It's almost like you're setting yourself up to fail. I mean, that's me. Worry about the things you do and you need to do, and not the things you don't need to do, because that seems like a waste of energy.
Well, I'm not saying worry about the things that you might get wrong. I'm saying, like, as far as maybe, like, so for us, for example, we kind of, in our class, we explain to you what the do's and don'ts of coaching are. I think there's so many more do's that you can do that can possibly enrich the session to the point where it can really that can be very scary, I think, and confusing as to which direction move into. I know for the don'ts, there's quite a handful of those. This is what you should not be doing in a session. And I think moving based off of that might be a bit easier as a coach, just depending on what type of person you are.
Negative brain bias. That's just your negative brain bias speaking.
Is it?
I mean, because I understand what you're saying. There's a lot of do's, like we do give a lot of tools in class.
Yeah.
And I know that there are times that I have, and I know that I've spoken to other coaches. They're like, "Oh, I never used that tool," and they're like, they feel it's almost like there's like a guilt.
They're unlimited, yeah.
But that's just because you haven't had a use for it yet, or you haven't integrated it. There's plenty of times I have learned something to do something, and then only really just scratch the surface. But then as I do it, I refine it and I make it better, and I move forward, and it gets and by the time where I started is not where I finished, and I'm using a lot more tools, and that's because the other ones have become second nature, because I've learned, because it's emergent strategy essentially. You've got to be able to adapt, and it's not real life to walk into a session with a book of this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to ask these questions in this order, and that's just not how life is. So it's a little unrealistic to do that.
I call that the cookie cutter answer. There's not a cookie cutter answer with this. Part of the coaches being in their heads and wanting to do this. It's just getting out there. You just got to do it every day, every place you go to, you live, breathe, sleep the process. You're in the grocery line. You're interested in what the person behind you is doing or the cashier is doing or whatever. You just start practicing the tools everywhere. And before you know it, you're not even realizing, like Brooke said, you're not even realizing you're using that particular tool because you've practiced it so much. It's part of the organicness of who you are now developing.
Kendra says, I'm in my head so much that it's stopping me from actually getting started, even though a big part of me knows I will be successful. And up to you, I would ask, well, what can you do today to get started? What is that first step?
Yeah. Keep it simple, right? You just keep it simple.
Yeah. What can you do today to get started? And don't think about it. You just pick one thing and do it. There's you don't have to think about anything other than doing that thing, whatever that is. And then once you do that one thing, I guarantee you the next one will be a little easier and you'll be in your head a little less.
You guarantee it?
Yeah. Well, I'm not right now. I'm not taking off the coach hat. Not wearing the coach hat. The coach hat is off. But with regard to fear, and I think as Susan asked earlier, is it ever important? Fear is without a doubt important. It is. It is also something we shouldn't be ashamed of. Somebody who struggled with it, it's and there is that like sense of like, oh my God, I'm not normal because I have fear. But that's not actually true. You're actually just reacting like a person that would react, and that's to be fearful, and it's built into us to keep us safe, right? But it's in the fear that we find the greatest learning, right? That's where it's when we get into that fear and we face it and we get through it that the greatest learning and growth can occur. So it's a big indicator at a minimum of, okay, I'm afraid. That probably means I might want to explore a little. That's a big like, woo, if I'm afraid, then maybe I should.
It's the check engine light that pops up that tells you, okay, got to check what the inner workings of what's going on here.
I mean, if you wanted like a big blinking sign that there's an opportunity for growth and learning, it's in that fear. So push yourself till you're afraid, and then that's when you can know what's possible at that point. And I think that when we stay in our comfort zone, which it tends to be something that's easy for us to do, right? We all stay in our comfortable space and doing our routine. That's where we are not afraid, and it's easy to retreat there. But when we push the bounds of that, that's when we grow and change. And our clients usually, when they're hiring us, they're in a space that they want that growth. They want change. They want to face those fears, and that's why they've got a coach most of the time.
For Kendall or Kendra, what she just said, I've done everything besides actually put myself out there to get clients on social media. I even have web pages for my coaching, but that's as far as I have went.
Still hasn't answered.
Hold on. That didn't answer Brooke's question, though. Brooke, what was your question again?
My question, Kendra, was what can you do today to be your first step, putting yourself out there? What is your first step?
As a coach, not as building your business.
So we'll wait and see if the response.
I think there's a little delay in the response. So
it might be good for coaches as well to sort of reaffirm their questions, because you might ask a question in a session. The client might go a bunch of different ways with this, but then maybe just asking that question again, and then say what you said again, and that might help keep the client sort of on track a little bit.
Well, that's avoiding. Like, right? If a client is I'm avoiding. So I'm going to talk about this, that, and the other. And that's, again, an indication of a fear, right?
Not that we're saying that you're avoiding, Ken.
But that it could be a client where you ask them something and they start to talk about all these other things, like Anthony's deflecting. And this, I guess that comes up in a lot of ways, a myriad of ways, like transference and avoidance, deflection, getting angry. There's tons of ways that a client can be dancing around something they're afraid to talk about. And that is definitely one. I can make a video, ask if anybody would like a free consultation. Okay, Kendra, so when are you going to make the video?
She answered a question with a question, though.
I know that was
We want a statement.
it's almost impossible. Kendra, when are you going to make the video? I'm just disregarding the almost impossible because we know it's not. I can make a video if anyone would like a free consultation. Okay, so when can you make the video, Kendra? And where can we see it?
Ooh, a challenge.
Yes.
Is challenging your clients sort of like that?
Tomorrow.
Well, it's one of the things we do with our clients is to hold them to have them set up their own timelines. Like this is and a timeline is important, and having that, because that is smart. It's part of those goals is you need to know what your deadline is. You need to have actionable. Okay, so tomorrow, Kendra has committed to our video by tomorrow. Where can we see it, Kendra? Because we're gonna look for it.
I don't know about that.
Oh, Kendra.
So she didn't agree for us to see it, so I can let that slide.
You're gonna let that slide? No. See,
I'll let it slide for now. I don't know if we're in her niche or anything like that.
So I mean, let's all show Kendra how we can do this. Everybody, offer free consultations to people.
Hi, everybody. My name is Anthony Lopez. I give free coaching I am giving free coaching consultations for the next 2 weeks. If you DM me or sign up with me or email me or whatever, get in contact with me. I will do a 1-hour free coaching session with you about anything you want.
So it's that simple. So really, I don't think making the video is Kendra's fear. What is Kendra's fear? Truly. What is your fear? Because I don't think it's making the video. What is the fear is my question. I'm scared. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of, Kendra?
Give her a minute. She's trying to answer. I know.
That's it. Get her on the line. Call her in.
I know. It's just that delayed response. Be patient. You have to be patient. It's still not going to be good enough. And what if it isn't? What if it isn't?
And what is good enough?
It's also free coaching.
What is good enough?
That's a very low bar to set, which is good for experience.
What is good enough too? How do you measure good enough? Give me a measurement for good enough. I'd like a quantifiable definition.
Yeah, I want to buzz her in. Here we go.
I know, right? We're gonna send her the link. Let's bring her in. They may not want to coach me again. Okay, so Kendra.
Here's the cool thing I just heard in that statement. The cool thing I heard in that statement is that you got somebody to respond. And they're taking you up on your offer.
She said, no.
But if they don't want to coach with you again, I mean, really, truly, what happens? What's the worst that happens? There'll be more, right?
Yeah. And who's to say that has anything to do with you as well, Kendra? I mean, maybe someone was coaching with you for the first time, and they decided, hey, this is not a space I want to be in right now. I am not ready for this.
It's their fear and insecurity, and not you. It has nothing to do with you.
And they might even be your clients. Like, there's a client for every coach.
Oh. I said maybe they'll refer people to you. Maybe it's not the space they want to be in, but they know somebody that would be perfect space for. There's so many things you don't know until you put yourself out there.
Yeah, you know what will happen if you don't do anything?
Nothing.
Which has got to be scarier than I think.
Might just be the
getting started.
You'll be in the same spot, just not have pulled the trigger. You'll have a bunch of nothing going on, which is, but in one case, you have hope.
That also the ultimate goal of coaching, so that your client doesn't need a coach.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So
maybe you were just that good that in the first coaching session they were like, "Nope, I'm done.
Handled.
Thank you, Kendra. I'm out."
Deuces.
Yeah, I think just in general, with whenever it comes to being afraid of starting anything, it just takes. I like to always put it towards the analogy of like starting a little snowball and then just rolling it down the hill. I mean, without starting that first little snowball, you can never. I mean, I don't want to use avalanche as like potentially being like the end result because that's pretty violent. But
Yeah, that's
you
pretty
know, just a nice big giant snowball at the end of the hill where everyone can kind of have fun with on a winter's day or something like
Make a
that. But,
snowman.
yeah,
Giant
there you
bomb.
go, perfect.
I was thinking of a giant snowball like running over children and stuff.
We'll say it's the basis for our snowman that
I
needs to be
worry
made.
about you guys sometimes. I really do.
We have sick, twisted. You hired us.
God. Oh my goodness.
So going back to a client's fear, I think we also talked about, or sort of in our little notes, we talk about backpedaling as well. So what if there's a client?
I don't know what you're talking about with back. I never mentioned anything about backpedaling.
It's in our notes for
I don't-
this.
It's in the drive. It's in our notes. Yeah.
I don't know if there was ever anything I wrote about backpedaling. I think that you guys
It's in there. I'm looking at it right now.
Backpedaling never happened.
I want to hear Anthony out. What do you have to say about backpedaling?
I'm backpedaling, people.
Yeah, Brooke's backpedaling. She's being evasive. What are you afraid of?
Backpedaling is she's saying she's not backpedaling. Yes.
No, I've never finished it. I never wrote anything about backpedaling. Who knows about backpedaling?
Oh, and Kendra, you
Yeah.
are welcome as well. We love
So
talking.
just
to
have
people.
fun with, I mean, you're just having a connection, you're just having fun, and you're just being interested. Kendra, can you just do that? Have fun, be interested.
Can you just me? Oh,
I'm gonna contest you. Can you just have fun?
That's like shoulds.
You should. This is
No, but have fun. Absolutely.
have fun with it. Just
We're also technically not coaching her, so we can
Not
just
all.
tell.
This is
we
not
don't.
at all coaching.
No.
We are coaching for 1 minute right now.
so that's the challenge. Just have fun.
Yeah, get out
Be
there.
interested in what you're
How about this? I have a question.
gonna say.
How do you make it fun for yourself? How do you make this not such like a big dire circumstance and this end all be all thing, and instead how do you make it fun? How do you make a game out of it? How do you make it time?
So for me, we're talking fears now. I have to just do the leap. I just have to, I call it close my eyes and have that blind leap of faith and just do it. And
I have
then,
to think, like how can we actually make it fun? Like make it fun.
yeah.
For me, I'd make like a game out of it. I would.
Yeah.
I would make I would try to find a way. Like okay, I'd set like objectives and I'd be like okay, and then it would be
I would
less.
see how
more
crazy I could get without being unethical and sort of breaking. Aside from that, it's just like how just like crazy and outgoing and just insane could I be as a coach and still
Or-
keep people interested? Like how far could I go?
Or
And
like
then
I
after
that's
that,
a good, I like that. That's a good point though. But like you could take it and go, okay, well wait, how many different videos doing different things could I put out there? Like, okay, so I'm gonna make this instead like a big testing ground for me, and I'm gonna put out a video about doing free ones. I'm gonna put out a video about doing anything like wearing the color blue. I'm gonna put out and see what comes back, and just sort of do it as like a test
Yeah.
audience research thing. And it's more about getting the responses and not about whether or not they're going to coach with me. It takes the pressure off of me and puts puts it in more of like a game space or learning space.
do it as an improv game. Like whose line is it? Anyways, where they're like, okay, now do it like a noir film. Do it like a pro wrestler.
Just do it.
Like, try wearing a hat and like, see everything. But that's the thing.
Oh,
You
I haven't
can
played Double Dutch. Do you
have
guys?
fun with it. Have fun with it and see if there's somebody else you can do a video with, or you can see if you can get people involved. Why not? But make it a game and make it less about the stress of people accepting me and more about like this could be fun. What can I learn?
Did you guys ever play Double Dutch? Jump? No,
Yes,
play.
of course.
Actually, yes.
I
It's
love
a
Double
girls'
Dutch.
game.
I can't do it anymore, but back in the day, I was pretty good at it.
Well, again, thing that happens is you trip. That's the worst, and you fall, and you might have a bloody nose. But then then you get to get out of school.
You're scaring everyone.
That's what I know. I was playing basketball that I got my first bloody nose.
I got a bloody nose one time playing tetherball.
I felt
Oh,
red.
tetherball is extreme.
Yeah.
I remember elementary school tetherball was pretty intense.
What happened to pie? I thought we were talking about pie.
Yeah, pie. Cambria got a paper cut today, and she wanted to share that with you all.
Talking about Reese's now.
Cardboard cuts. Cardboard cuts suck. Okay, so what were we saying? Backpedaling. We were talking about backpedaling.
That's what we're doing right now.
So
We're
maybe
talking about
backpedaling
pie,
as
paper
in
cuts.
What happens if we have a client that sets a goal and then backpedals with their goal? Says, no, maybe I don't really want to do that.
I don't want to do that. I want to do something else instead. And then the next week, well, I don't really want to do that. I kind of want to work on.
Or or if if something goes wrong, right? And so now they're disheartened and they're like, I think I'm going to switch goals. What do we do?
I think you can address that. You can maybe say after it's occurred multiple times, say, hey, this has happened 3 times over the last 3 coaching sessions. I just want to make sure that we're moving towards a goal that you feel is true to you and you want to complete. Mm-hmm. And I think with that kind of checks them a bit. I don't think it scares them. It shouldn't. And it gives them a space to kind of just think about, you know what, you're right. The last 3 sessions I did change my goal.
What if I say, I don't know what you're talking about?
They just play dumb?
Yeah, I have not.
I can't think of a client is going to play dumb.
I think you've got to reiterate, hey, look, I know what I'm talking about here. The last 3 sessions, you've changed your goal. I have notes here.
I don't know
you did it.
Now you're just gaslighting us, which is different.
You did it.
So, as a serious answer, maybe you can allow them to change their goal, but sort of.
Can you allow them? Of course, you have to let them.
Yeah. I mean, of course you allow them, but you don't try to keep them on the same goal or investigate. Well, why is it you're changing? Maybe instead try to find out what was it about that original goal that was finding the why for that original goal. So let me give a hypothetical example. Let's say I've got a client who wants to run a marathon as a goal. They've never done anything sort of fitness related before. They run a mile. Hold on. And they come to me next week and they're like, I give up. I don't want to do this goal anymore. Running's too hard. And I would ask then.
I can't run anymore.
Well, then I would ask as a client, I'd be like, okay, so what was it about running that mile or the marathon? Why was that important to you? And hopefully throughout the process of talking to that, they might come up with a different fitness goal that is still sort of.
Well, maybe it wasn't fitness related. Maybe it was that I wanted to tackle the mental side of running a marathon. And I wanted to know that I could mentally push through that kind of endurance.
Well, obviously you couldn't, because now you're quitting. But
after 1 mile. But that's why I need this goal, because I know.
Well, what are some other goals then that can help you push your mental endurance then? What are some other things that are possible for you? Maybe more purely mental rather than physical.
In the English Channel.
But you see what I'm doing is I'm exploring alternative goals that still sort of meet whatever bigger goal the client has. So if they backpedal, maybe use that to your advantage to try to get them into a goal they're more happy with, because you can't ultimately decide if they're.
That just wants to change my mind every week. Like, what if I'm just that person? Like, I just am a fly by the seat of my pants kind of girl.
I'd say then you need to find a new coach.
I want to make sure our sessions are being accountable to what you're wanting to get from what's going. And so I'm going to ask them, Brooke, what are you getting from our sessions that feels like it's supportive of you when you leave here?
I just like to be able to share about my whims and my goals. I really don't expect to actually gain much, so I'm happy.
Well, I think you've got to, at that point, I think at that point you've got to make an ethical choice.
Honoring something or another.
Just in this space, while we're in this space, though, there is this thing. There is actually it's something we kind of took out of our curriculum a bit because it bothered me. of this thought process between linear and nonlinear people. And there is this preconception that non-linear people are all over the place, flighty, not capable of, which is total BS. Pardon my French. It's absolute total BS. Just because we're non-linear and we're not working in a line that you see does not mean that we're not working towards our goals and accomplishing things. That annoys me. And again, why we had it taken out of our curriculum. But as a coach, that can be confusing at times. I know with my coaches, I've checked in with often, like, where are you going with this, Brooke? So there's a big space there where this like non-linear linear feeling where you can feel like your client might be flighty and all over the place, but that's why checking in with them and not just assuming that that's what's going on is very important and critical in this space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As somebody who's non-linear at all, and all my clients are non-linear, so I can't find a good client to submit to ICF because all of my clients are all non-linear and all over the place. And it's driving me crazy. Sorry. Anyways, I need a linear client, guys. Hey, anybody out there that's linear? I could stand to coach you. Give me a call.
That might lead to a whole other discussion. I've got questions of what is actually nonlinear.
Yeah.
Is it because there's planned nonlinear, like there's nonlinear books that are clearly planned, but there's also the nonlinear thinking, which is what most people think of as nonlinear.
We're gonna have to have an episode of next week be about linear and
we
nonlinear
should do
thinking.
that.
Let's talk about pie now.
I don't think we talked about that, so I think that's a great one to talk about.
I was giving you pie, anyways. Let's next week nonlinear.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
No. We're talking about I want to talk about next week's taboos, oddities, myths, and
the following week is kind of weak, so let's do that one the following week, and then we'll do next week. We'll do nonlinear. Yeah,
that's not spooky enough.
It's not nonlinear. Is terrifying. What happened to pie? 3.14159.
Monsolite J. Bowden says those are abstract thinkers. Yeah, you would say that, wouldn't you, Monsolite?
Love you, Monsolite. Love you. Okay, I think we're about out of time, guys.
Yeah.
And I
think the whole thing.
I have a cold, and this has deteriorated into madness.
We're not going to talk about pie for the next 4 minutes.
3.14159.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What's your favorite pie? What's your favorite pie?
Hershey cream pie, absolutely.
Hershey cream pie.
Yeah.
Kendra said, "Thank you all so much. I'll follow up with you guys and let you know how everything went." That's good.
Yeah.
We want to hear.
That's right.
What's your favorite pie, Anthony?
Pumpkin pie.
Pumpkin. I like pumpkin too.
Mm-hmm.
Pumpkin. I'm traditional. I like pumpkin. I like apple.
I have not.
What kind of pie do you like?
Monsolite's favorite pie is hand waving. She likes hand pie. I like lemon pie.
I like lemon pie.
I like all different pies. I just I like ice cream pie.
Banana pie.
Banana ew.
Ooh,
I love bananas.
Ooh, look at that face. I didn't make any faces when you said anything.
I like banana bread though.
I like banana bread.
I don't eat bread.
Pecan pie. Did anyone say that? I love pecan pie. I love nuts in my pie.
I had one time I was in an airport sitting next to a gentleman, and he had taken on the plane his homemade little it wasn't pecan. I think it was sweet potato pie. He shared them. I'm like, oh my gosh, they were delicious.
I make a really amazing. It's with a pretzel crust, and it's a peanut butter and chocolate pie, but it's like peanut butter and chocolate, like light and fluffy. So it's almost like peanut butter and chocolate, but it's got the salty pretzel crust. It's so good. I like it. It's so good that like family members request it months in advance.
Yes, Kendra likes sweet potato pie. Yeah,
I experiment with pies too. I'm an experimenter when it comes to food. I don't like baking things. The only thing I can bake is a pie. Otherwise, I'm not a baker. Sweet potato pie from Kendra.
Shepherd's pie.
Peanut butter and chocolate pie. So
that's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, Oreo.
I think we totally segued.
Hi.
My cherry pie.
3.1415. I can't ever get past the 9. 3.141592.
What in the heck are you talking about?
I'm giving you pie.
Yeah,
I'm giving you
nope.
pie.
Oh,
Can't check in with
well,
me.
the video keeps cutting out, and I'm not hearing the 3.14. I didn't hear that. Okay.
3.14159, bro.
Is there 2? Is it the 2 after the 9?
Yep, it's 26535.
I win. I don't know. Okay, that's as far as I can go.
Thank you all for being here. Certified Life Coach Institute. We certify you in 3 days or 6 days if you want to come into level 2.
Magic tricks. Like, woo.
We'll see you guys next week at 4 right here on Facebook
We
and
stayed
YouTube.
sane enough. Apparently, we're going a little cuckoo at the moment.
You guys have a wonderful week.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Once again, this is brought to you by Certified Life Coach Institute. We're an ICF accredited school who certifies our life coaches in 3-day online intensive courses. In addition to other podcast episodes, feel free to check us out every Tuesday at 4:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube or Facebook for our CLCI Lives, where we get together and discuss various topics that are centered around sharpening your skills so you can become a better certified life coach. For more information, feel free to visit us at certifiedlifecoachinstitute.com. Until next time, be well.